Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into a fun day of baking with a variety of recipes. We'll be making two recipes that call for sourdough, so I prepared my starter the night before, but don't worry if you're not into sourdough. We have plenty of recipes that don't require it. I will also be baking 2 loaves of sourdough bread, which means I needed lots of starter. So I fed it the night before and left it on the countertop to be ready for the morning. After giving the kids their breakfast, the first task was to start on my sourdough bread. This timing allowed me to do the first stretch and fold before I take my older kids to the bus stop. Once I returned home, I organized all the ingredients by recipe. Using printed version I found online, I researched popular recipes that people recommend, and I'm excited to test them out with you. If they turn out great, I will share my thoughts and any modification you might want to try. I'll provide links to all the recipes in the description so you can visit the original sites. I've gathered all the ingredients that needed to be at room temperature, and I've already begun my stretch and fold for the sourdough bread. So let's get started. I begin with recipes that require baking at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once those are done, we'll increase the temperature for the remaining recipes that needed it. First up is sourdough granola, a favorite of my husband. I have been using this recipe for nearly a year now. I found it online and will include a link to the description box. So let's have some fun in the kitchen. 6 cups of oats. To that I'm adding 1 cup of coconut oil. I got these from Sam's Club. I actually went to buy the smaller one from Walmart, but it would cost like $6.98, almost $7. And this one, the one I usually buy, organic one from Sam's Club, cost $8 something. So I was like, never mind. I went back to Sam's Club to grab that one. 1 cup of coconut oil. I put the oil first, so when I put the honey after, it come up very easy. Here we go. We have 1 cup of oil. So the recipe say 1 cup of maple syrup or honey. And I'm gonna mix between both. And try to kind of combine everything together, melt that coconut oil. The oil is kind of melted already since it's summertime and we're in Florida. But if you're doing it in the winter or if you're somewhere cold, you want to make sure that you melt the coconut and coat all the oats with oil and honey before we do the next step. So this is all melting and good. I'm gonna add half a cup of sourdough discard. This is half a cup. So the recipe says 1 cup of nuts and seeds. I don't have any seeds today. Usually I put pumpkin seeds here. It's salty. And then I add something to the granola, but since I don't have that, and she doesn't mention that you can add salt, but I am going to add a pinch of salt after. I'm adding the nuts. I really just don't measure for that, but you can measure 1 cup. I think the nuts, it really depend on you, and the kind of nuts also depend on what you like. So here I have hazelnut, I have almonds, and I have walnuts. Okay, I'll add the salt at the end when it's time to break it down. I'll add some salt flakes on top. This is going to the oven. I'm gonna put it in a baking sheet and it's time to go to the oven. What she does in the video, she make everything in a cast iron, so from the stove to the oven. I don't have a cast iron, so that's why I do it this way, but you can do that option too. You can add seasoning if you want, some cinnamon if you like cinnamon, or you're doing this in fall and you like to put cinnamon in it. Try to make it as thin as possible, and then when it's baking we are going to kind of turn it around. The fact that there is sourdough, it will make it crunchy, and also the big chunks. If you never have big chunks when you do granola, this is the recipe. And if you don't have sourdough, you can absolutely mix some flour and water and kind of make a runny dough and use it. It's gonna bake anyway. It's nothing that's gonna hurt you. You're not eating anything raw. This is also a good way to use discard if you have a lot of sourdough discard. Okay, this is going to the oven for 40 minutes. I'm gonna check it at 20 minutes. Third stretch and fold. I'm gonna wash my hands very quick. I have a video on how I make my sourdough bread. I can link that as well. You always want to keep your hands wet so it doesn't stick to your hands. To stretch and fold. This is gonna rest for 30 more minutes. I'm gonna follow this recipe, which is mine, but because I don't know where's my book. This is a French apple tart, and usually the inside, it's a homemade applesauce, but it's not really applesauce, it's more like a chunky. But today what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use an American apple pie filling to put it inside, and I'll let you know if it's gonna be as good as the one you make at home or not. Okay, this needs to stay cold. 1/3 of a cup of almond flour. Okay. I'd rather use a scale. It's always better with a scale. I'm gonna use a scale. Do with a scale. 220 grams. Just a pinch or so. Give it a good whisk. You want to make sure the almond flour and the all-purpose flour mix together, and then we add in our butter. Give it another whisk until I get the egg ready. I'll make sure all the powders are mixed correctly before you add the egg. That's it, no more liquid needed. Just that egg. That's it. Once it comes together, take more color. Next in our baking agenda are 2 tasty brownie recipes. One is sourdough brownie and the other is pumpkin brownie. Let's kick things off with the sourdough brownie. The thing is, I wanted to buy the Walmart brand because what everybody say, the store brand is always cheaper. And I needed several ones for different recipes, right? But when I was at Sam's Club, I was like, let me go online and see how much is it on Walmart. And believe it or not, it's cheaper to buy this than buying the small Walmart brand. So I went with this one. The butter is melting. I'm gonna add 340 grams. There's 341, 42, so I'm going to take one to eat it. Still 342. Okay. So, add the butter with the chocolate chip. So here start to melt a tip, okay? Never use a spoon with water when you deal with chocolate. Water and chocolate are not good friends. So here a dry spatula, make sure this is kind of melting. I'm gonna add the cocoa right now. gonna set this aside and let it cool a little bit, and we are going to work on the other ingredients so we can add this later on without being too hot. So we're gonna let it cool a little. I'm gonna set this aside right here. 1 cup of sugar. To combine, and she says the batter would be very thick, so because the batter is already thick before we even add the flour. But this recipe is very good. This is not the first time I do this recipe. This is something that I always do for my son. He loves this brownies. The next brownie we are going to make is gonna be brownie and pumpkin. This is ready. One, two, okay, three. So we're gonna do one gonna be chocolate, one gonna be pumpkin puree. So let's start with the chocolate. For the chocolate, I'll be adding cocoa powder, chocolate chip, just cocoa powder and chocolate chip for this one. So it's gonna be 1/4 of a cup of cocoa powder. Okay, 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree.
To the oven now for 45 to 48 minutes.
Returning to the apple tart, the dough has now rested, which means it's ready to be rolled out and placed into the tart mold. This dough is quite delicate, but its taste is truly unmatched. Next on our baking list, applesauce cupcakes topped with cream cheese frosting. Yum! The recipe originally calls for pastry flour, but don't worry if you don't have any on hand. You can easily make a substitute by removing 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour and replace it with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. This simple switch will give your cupcakes a tender and fluffy texture.
Glaze is something expensive. To show you how you do it with something cheaper. So you have to have apricot preserves or apricot jam, but it has to be apricot, not something else. No. 2 tablespoons of apricot preserve, 1 tablespoon of water, and you put it 30 seconds in the microwave.
The sourdough bread has completed the bulk fermentation process, and now we're ready for the final steps. I won't be baking these loaves today since we have enough bread for the next day or two. I will let them rest in the fridge and bake them tomorrow. What I usually do, I bake both loaves the same day. I keep one and freeze the other one. When I know we're running out of bread, I simply take the frozen loaf and let it thaw overnight. The result is remarkable. It feels as fresh as in the morning. However, it won't have that crunchy crust, and if you desire that texture, just brush it with a little water and place it in a preheated oven for a few minutes to achieve the perfect crust. I will also provide the link to my pumpkin-shaped sourdough bread recipe, where you can discover all the steps to achieve your ideal sourdough bread and master the pumpkin shape. At this point, I will begin preparing the recipes that require a higher oven temperature, and I started with pumpkin muffins. This recipe calls for pumpkin pie spice, and since I didn't have any on hand, I blended my own mix. I will include the proportion in the description box for your reference. These muffins rose beautifully in the oven, and I was truly impressed with their final appearance. However, I must mention that they weren't sweet enough to enjoy on their own. My kids typically love muffin as an afternoon snack, but they weren't fan of this one. On the bright side, it pairs wonderfully with a cup of coffee, savoring them all myself. Just a tip, you can definitely freeze baked goods. Simply thaw them for at least 4 hours before enjoying, which is exactly what I plan to do with these muffins.
Just enough to combine. It smells good. It smells very good. Okay, just enough to combine. Make sure there's no flour on the bottom. Since it's almost Halloween, why not? Put it 5 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit and let it buff. So far, this is the brownie, this is the pumpkin brownie, the applesauce cupcakes, and I still have to do the frosting, but I want to wait until I clean the kitchen, turn off the oven, have the kitchen cool before I do that. Here we have the granola, and somebody already took some. I'm not gonna say it's my husband. The apple tart, this is the French apple tart, and here I have my sourdough bread resting. So let's take advantage of this time that we have. We're waiting for the muffin to go and cut these, okay? Let's cut these and see how it is inside. Look at this. This is just amazing. This is amazing. This one now.
I felt incredibly disappointed when I discovered that my camera had died while I was recording the tasting of the pumpkin brownies. And whoever created this recipe is a true genius, and it is absolutely delicious.
This is just, I'm not sure how to explain it. You have to eat it to understand. I was trying to explain it earlier in the video, but I didn't realize that it died on me. But it's so moist. It's like you're taking a bite of a brownie from the brownie part, and then a bite from a pumpkin cake or something. And the combination is just perfect.
With the oven turned off and the kitchen cooling down, now I can start preparing the cream cheese frosting for the cupcakes. I must admit, these applesauce cupcakes are delicious even without the frosting. I shared one with my toddler and she absolutely loved it. While preparing the frosting, I mistakenly added all the sugar at once. By the time I realized I should have added it gradually while whisking, it was already too late. So I used a spatula to mix the sugar into the cream cheese and butter blend. Otherwise, using my hand mixer with that much powdered sugar in the bowl would have created a cloud of dust in the kitchen. Yummy? Yummy!
Can mommy film this and then I'll give you in the cupcake? Okay? Finish eating that one and then let mommy put this here so we can put it in the cupcake, okay?
Wow.
You like it?
Wow.
Thank you for watching today's video and hope to see you in the next one.